Hello there, good morning and welcome. It is Sunday, it is the 27th of February and it's just after 10 o'clock in the morning. So I need to be at a meeting by 11, so this will be a relatively quick video, I hope. So I'm likely to show you a couple of steps or just do it and come back when I've more or less finished it, if that's okay. So, chop it up a bit. But I hope you're all doing well. Thank you for all the lovely wishes I had from people. I'm feeling better today. Still not quite right, but I feel quite upbeat and chipper. So that's a good thing. And I've had breakfast, which is also a good thing because I didn't have much in the way of meals yesterday. And I'm still on my first mug of tea, which I'm just going to have a drink of. I love tea. Coffee's okay. Yeah, I've grown to like coffee again. I think it's the menopause and changes in tastes. But tea's always my first go-to. And if I'm off my tea, I'm not well. It has to be said. So, with no further ado, what am I going to do? Well, yesterday I cut up an A4 sheet of the Clairefontaine mixed media paper. It's called Paint On. I actually got 6 squares out of it, 4" by 4" and 2, I think it was 3.5" by 3.5". This is one of the 4" by 4" ones, which is 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters. And I thought I'd do what's called a monotangle today. I want something simple, something that would be quite elegant, I suppose, that would look lovely on the top of a card. I did a card topper yesterday, and it may not suit everybody, it has to be said, because it's one of my quirky ones, but in my defense, I won well. So today I've chosen a pattern that is new to me, and it's called Flor-In-Square, and that is spelled FLOR-in-square, and it has been deconstructed, I think is the correct term, put together by Anita Hou CZT from Taiwan. And it is an interesting take on, I suppose, floors or some other tangles that are similar. You'll see what I mean. So what I've got here is I have a grid that I've put on here. I've put this about, I think it's 1/4 inch. And each of these are 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters. Yes, I'm mixing my measurements. 2 centimeters is 2.5 centimeters is an inch. So 2 centimeters. Let me have a look. Does this actually? Yeah, it's 7/8 of an inch. There you are. See, 2 centimeters, easy to measure. 7/8 of an inch, not quite so. And I did use a ruler to do it because I can get a bit, fussy about such things. And the whole grid, I actually need to do a bit of work on this here, because as well as putting, I'll start with 1 square. So what I'm going to do is, I am on screen. Am I? Oh, let me do the autofocus a moment. I forgot to set that before I started working. It won't go fuzzy on and off then. I'm going to draw a square in this pencil grid. Now, these are all going to be slightly differently because I'm just using the pencil grid as a start. So there's this. Okay, easy, yeah? So then what I want to do is in the corners, I'm going to pop some little squares. Try and keep them consistent in size, but the pattern is, it doesn't really matter because the slight differences will get lost hopefully across the whole of the pattern. I'm going to put a dot in the middle, and then from that dot, I'm going to draw flower petals. Like this and like this. And the last thing that needs to be done, and I am going to reach over here because I I've only just decided that I wanted to do this particular pattern, and I didn't think to get a brush pen out, but I have now. So I just reached over to my pen tray, and I'm just going to colour these corners in black. Now my mind is already ticking that it would be quite nice to put a gold square within that black square, but let's just stick to the black for now and see where that leads us. So I'll do another one, because you know my mind's ticking towards what I'm going to do in terms of variations on the theme. Oh, one more thing that needs to be done. Like this. And that is really, you know, stalks with balls on the end. And I've roughly put those little balls in line with the tips of the petals, like that. This reminds me sort of medieval squares, but not quite. So let's have a look. So here I'm going to draw the square. I'm going to try to keep it about the same distance away. These lines I'm drawing the same distance away from pencil line that I've drawn in, and then I can match these squares up in the corner with each other. So if I imagine I'm drawing a line across here, I can get that to match up, and I can get this to match up, and I can go across and do that. Not very square-like, because I think I've drawn this line a little bit up, but it'll be the overall impression rather than the individual squares that matters. So again, I'm going to put that dot in the middle before I start drawing the petal shapes from it. And I'm using my Scuzzy 05 pen, simply because I can. I'm determined to wear this out completely, you know that, before I break into a new one. This paper isn't the best to draw on with fine liners because it is rough. It's a lovely paper. I love it. It's white. It's got a lovely texture. It's great if you're going to add media to the top, but it does wreck your pens. I mean, really, I'd love to use Bristol board because it is so smooth. If you are going to buy Bristol board, it is expensive-ish as papers go, and there are very many different brands. I have used or tried Strathmore's Bristol board in the past, and they have different types of it. One of it has a vellum surface, which I do not like. That's my personal preference. It feels quite slick and shiny, but it's bumpy as well, so it just doesn't feel right to me. But they do a smooth one. I can't remember if I've managed to get hold of that. I'm in the UK, and so sometimes art supplies from companies elsewhere in the world can be a bit hit or miss if you can find them. And I think they do a version that is more for mixed media. I could be wrong. I like Winsor & Newton or Daler & Rowney or Frisk. Frisk is quite nice, actually. It actually looks like it's got a purple colour to it as well. It hasn't, but, well, perhaps it has, but it may be something's in it to make it look ultra white. But the problem with Bristol board is it's lovely for drawing with pen on. Apparently it's brilliant if you're airbrushing. I've sort of like dabbled occasionally, or not dabbled with it, but I've occasionally courted the idea of having a, move that over a bit, there we go, of getting and using an airbrush to see whether it would work. But to be honest with you, I said in my last video, if I want to add colour to something, I'm more likely to draw this on paper, scan it in, add the colour digitally, and then print it out on really good quality paper or card and go that route, because that would suit me better, because I know that with digital colour I do that well. Whereas if you saw yesterday's video, I gave you a quick view of the nightmare first version of the design that I came up with. These squares are getting slightly bigger, aren't they, as I go along? But that's okay. Maybe a need for more pencil guidelines, perhaps, she says. Possibly. But again, it could just be part of the variation of the pattern. Hand drawn. Okay, so I'm going to finish this tile off. I'm going to fill in the rest of the squares, and I'll come back then and we'll have a look at how we can finish this off. So see you in a mo. Haven't finished, but I thought I'd share this tip with you. Is that I was drawing each box individually because I was showing you how to draw this one step at a time. But with a grid, I would actually draw all of these lines in across like this in one go, leaving a consistent gap. And the same here, because it is easier to get them the same kind of distance away from the line. I wouldn't worry too much about getting them to start and end in the same place, because that can be adjusted when we do the other lines. But it is much quicker. Or perhaps it has the feeling of being quicker because you get the basic structure in, I suppose. But it's the repetitiveness that helps. And then I'd give this a little bit of time to dry, but we can do the same and go this way to join them up to make squares. And if the lines don't quite join up, then it's easy to adjust them. But you get the idea, so I'll go off and finish adding the insides. So see you in a mo. Okay, so another tip. I said I'd come back when I finished them, but I'll come back when I work something out. I said this is the first time I've drawn this. But what I've found is that, oh, one of my hairs has managed to get there. Draw these in, but if we go to these ones, you may find it easier to draw them in as a square, because they do form a square there, don't they? And I just think that is an easier way to keep the size perhaps a little bit more consistent, at least in the corners. No, oops, missed one there. So I hope that helps. I think I've shown you the tip. Yeah, there's nothing else, so I'll carry on with this and I'll see you in a mo. Okay? So there we are, back, all done. Not always very neatly. I know I need to do some touch up here and there, but it's actually is really, really a lovely pattern, and it really does remind me of tiled floors. I tell you what I'm so tempted to do as well is, you know where these meet here? I'm going to pop a kind of square in there, because it's not always going to be square because I didn't draw these in to begin with. I think if I do this again, I'm going to put these pencil guidelines in for the outer squares, and I also think I'll put some in for these little inside squares. I quite like this. It just joins everything together, and suddenly that original grid just disappears. And it doesn't take long to do this. And then around the edge, okay, so we are going to have some little ones here, like so, just to finish that off. I think I could have actually, let's make them full squares. and make that a feature around the outside edge, perhaps. So instead of having a perfectly straight line around the outside, we're going to have a little bit like, I suppose, weird castle crenellations. Very weird. A crenellated border. Except on a castle they'd be closer together. And I'm putting one here on the corners as well, because otherwise they're left out. You can't leave the corners out. Popping these squares in. I think that was quite a good idea, actually. As I said, the original grid then disappears, and that will disappear completely once I take an eraser to it. I'm just going to turn these into full squares, because I only did them as half a square to begin with, and I thought that looked a bit odd. By the time I turned the corner, I thought, oh, they'd be better off as full squares. And I just need to finish this one off here with one on the corner. But very much like floor tiles. This is ripe for possibilities for adding colour, for variations. Because when I'd filled in these corner squares, I thought, gosh, there's so many fragments I could create from that. But of course we've got this bit in the middle as well, the flower in the middle, that can be altered. It's lovely. I've done it in a grid. You can do it as a border, a very straight one, a wavy one, a curvy one. This would work in any kind of shape like that. I think it could work in a triangle, but I might look at that when it comes to me looking at fragments next. I did say what I fancied doing was putting a gold square in the corner, but I've got such lovely colours here. Do I want to go with gold, or shall I go with another colour? Let's have a look. I've got a lovely pink, a metallic pink, and I'm using metallics rather than something that's a bit more glittery. Let me get a piece of scrappy paper that I can use. Oh, this is one of the 3.5 inches ones. If I do it on the back, I can always use the front side. So if I use this on top of the card, nobody will know I've used it to get the pen working and checking that it's working. So I think in these, I'm going to see if I can just pop a little square. And it won't take long to do. The problem is I've started at the bottom and I really needed to start at the top, because you want to work away from the wet ink. So that's easy. Bottom becomes top. Lovely thing about grids. So I just think that would work nicely. And it cuts down on some of this black space. Now I do like black, but I think if you're going to pop this on a greeting card for somebody, I think a splash of colour is quite nice. Of course I filled these in with black, but you could leave them blank and add colour to them, or other patterns, because this is big enough to put something inside it perhaps. And if I'd only done 4 of these or 6 of these, a grid of 4 or a grid of 6 here, to have more space to work with. But I went with a relatively dense pattern of these because I really wanted that feeling of a tiled floor, I suppose. I'm not brilliant with gel pens either. My heavy-handedness goes against me. And I'm also rushing a bit here for you, because it's a bit like watching paint dry. Just admit, out of all the gel pens that I've come across, the Jelly Rolls are definitely some of my favourites. The Signo, Uniball Signo are okay. The pencil Slicky, they're really quite nice. And I think Pentel do gel pens, metallic gel pens that are in, that that have two colours in them, and they appear to be different colours at different angles, but also look different on light and dark coloured backgrounds. So they're fun and they're nice, but I think the Sakura are the ones that win my heart in many ways, although the Signo glitter gels are quite good as well. But we all have our own preferences. I'm not a big fan of gel pens generally. Oh, but you've missed one, Angela. Yes, I did. But I went back and added it. So that's added a little bit of colour and also some shine. Now, if I really wanted to get technical with this, or give something that's a bit of a completely different kind of thing, is I could dig out my the clear Sakura glaze and go over those squares with that. Now I've dug out this light green because I'm thinking light green in the centre of these small squares would add that extra little bit of colour. And yes, you're going to say, yes, Angela, you've started at the top, the bottom, and you're going to work your way up. Well, I think here, no matter where I start, it's all wet, because these gel pens do take a little while to dry. But I think that little hint of green there is quite fun. I could have put gold, but I went with green for something a bit different. And that could almost do it as it is. I'm tempted not to add any shadow to this. I think the only thing that I would do is consider putting some colour in the flowers to lift them. I could do that with these gel pens, but I think what I'd be tempted to do there is to actually put a dot in the bottom of the let me show you. Just get that. What colour should we use? I think it would. Should I go with that pink again, or should I go with a slight? Let's go with the lovely purple colour. So I've got pink, purple, and green, which are really quite pretty. Woo! Because I nearly throw water everywhere, and I need a fine brush. So let me find a finish brush very quickly. That one would be too fine, I think. That one would be perhaps a bit too thick. So I go hunting. Oh, no, that's going to be too hunting. That'll do, perhaps. So this is the other thing you can do with these Sakura gel pens. I have mentioned this before and shown it before, but I'm going to pop just a dot right in the centre there, and just with a slightly damp brush, I can then brush that out to fill the space. You have to do this, obviously you have to do it while the ink is damp, wet, and the smaller the dot, the greater the fading effect you can get. You do need to be careful though that I've gone over the black line a little bit there. That's perhaps a bit too much water, so I'm just going to add a little bit more of that and fade it out. And I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do every other in purple, and perhaps come back and do some in pink as well, so we've got a variation, another pattern going on, which I think would be quite nice. What do you think? Yeah, I think so. So that will bring another pattern. So on the next row down, it's these ones that are going to get the purple treatment. The easiest way to remember is to go diagonally from one colour to the other. Once the purple are in, it'd be easy enough. I'm going with pink and purple. They remind me of spring crocuses. I haven't seen any yet. It's sunny out, so I'm hoping that this afternoon I'm going to brave the outside world and go and see if I can spot some pretty flowers. So managed to get some water over there somehow. Just moving it around to make it easier for me to get to these areas. Again, just slightly damp brush. I'm just wiping it in between my finger and thumb, just to make sure that it is just barely damp. It's a bit on the wet side, but it's okay. You don't want to carry too much colour from one to the next, if you can help it. I think these reactivate with water. I could be wrong, but I think these do reactivate with water. I don't think they dry waterproof like the souffle and the glaze do. So it's quite nice to put the clear glaze on over the top to seal them in as well. And that's lovely to do with glitter pens, because you get like a clear dome, almost like clear glass on the top. And it's not quite as noticeable on paper because the paper will absorb it. But I was just checking there, thinking, oh my gosh, have I done this wrong? Have I got these in the wrong place now? Talking. But it certainly does add a lovely shine over the top of them, and that would add something really nice to these. And, you know, I could have coloured the background before I started drawing. That would add a different feel to it. I have got a video about using distress inks to create backgrounds for drawing on, how I do it, so that if you're unfamiliar with that. I use distress inks, but any kind of blendable ink pad would work. There are many brands on the market. There's all the people who make stuff for stamping and card making seem to have their own ranges of, as well as, you know, the distress inks, and they range in price. I don't use pigment inks for it. You can use pigment inks, but they take a long time to dry, whereas the dye-based inks, they're water reactive, but they blend so nicely, and you can use them in other ways. I use them almost like watercolours as well from time to time, which actually would have perhaps been better yesterday for the drawing, the first drawing I did dye colours, because I could have chosen, like I've done here, a fairly limited palette of colours, but colours that work nicely together. So I've got a purpley colour here, and that's already made a nice difference, hasn't it? Oops. So let's see if I can finish this before I have to go to my meeting, so you can see this. So I will add the pink here, same way as the purple. And it's just that subtle little bit of shine here that really does lift them. It's very subtle rather than having it all in one pool. That tiny dot goes such a long way. It's because these gel pens are so pigmented, I think. But practice, you can work out how big a dot you need to cover the area, how much ink you need to put down, and how much you need to get the colours you like. And to be honest with you, I'm not worried about having slightly different intensities on petals and what have you, because that's what happens in nature, isn't it? No two petals are exactly the same, or the same, you know, gradation of colour. So it's quite nice to play. These you can blend colours as well, so I could have put, you know, purple at one end, pink at the other, and blended the two together, but I've chosen not to in this instance. It is quite a small area, but it's possible to do because you're working, as long as you use a small brush and you're working with such a tiny amount of ink. And if you want very little colour at one end and a darker colour at the other, like I've just done here, you just pick up the tiniest amount of colour from that dot, spread it down to the end, and then spread this the other way. You might need to do a little bit of blending, but the water tends to take care of that to some degree. dampness on the paper. Just like that. Oh gosh, ping, ping, ping on my phone. Goodness knows what that is. There's probably a pile of emails. It's Sunday, so they won't be business. So that, well, they might be, but not usually. Nothing of any great. Oh gosh, I've just rinsed my brush in my tea. It's okay. I think these are non-toxic. I'm not going to poison myself with Sakura Jelly Roll ink. Nearly done. This is a really quick way to add colour as well, and really simple, because if you're like me, I'm fine with some media. I'm getting into marker pens for some things, but digital is the best for me if I want to get complicated. And of course it gives me the ability to use a colour and then go, nope, and change it. It's not so easy to do with traditional media. So this needs to be left to dry before I can remove the pencil lines and before I try to mount it on a card. So I hope you've enjoyed this. It's going to be a relatively short video, I think, today, because I do want to try and get out in the sunshine and lift my spirits. Not that they need much of a lift today, but give me that boost after I've been unwell and get my body moving. So I do hope you've enjoyed this, that you like the end result. I'm really quite happy with it. I thought that using the metallic, excuse me, I just had to move my curtain back a bit to let some to put my brush away, but I think that works quite nicely. And even on the bits that have been watercoloured, you might be able to see as I move it around, there's a bit of a sheen and a shine even on those as well. So this is going to be mounted as a greetings card. I may make the card blank, so I've got a colour, or colour the card, I don't know. But I'll just say thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed it, thumbs up. If you've subscribed, thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. I did say I wasn't going to release a video every day. Who knows with me? I'm just going to go see what happens, what the days bring. And I may not follow my plan of what I'm going to have a theme of a day either, but we'll see how that goes as well. So until I see you again, take care, look after yourselves, and above all else, be creative. Bye for now. Bye-bye.